So, as you can probably tell, I've been playing a lot of Ranked this season. And when my games have not been ruined by cheaters literally hiding under the map for the final zone.
They'll never shoot through this.
I have been there.
Yeah, like seriously, this wasn't a one-off thing. They kept doing this over and over again. The same people.
Ban them.
I've been keeping a close eye on which weapons are currently in the meta for Apex Legends Season 6, which weapons are the strongest to use in the game right now, and which are the weapons that people are leaving on the floor or not using at all. If you go on to enjoy today's video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content. Of course, we're fast approaching 30,000 subscribers, which will be an amazing landmark to hit, and if you don't subscribe, well, Gibby's just gonna come and do this to your monitor. Yeah, you don't want that. Now before we do kick off the weapons tier list with the F tier, it is worth mentioning that all three of the care package weapons are not included on this tier list, as for obvious reasons they would be in the top tier, so if you're wondering about any of the care package weapons, just remember that they are always top tier weapons. I'm just going to disclose that right here. So the Kraber, the Peacekeeper and the R99 are all in S tier in my opinion. But with that out of the way, we can move on to the F tier, the worst tier of weapons in Apex Legends. These are the guns you're probably better off punching the wall and winning. Than using these weapons. Now in this bottom tier we have three main weapons. Those are the Mozambique, the P2020 and the Charge Rifle. I'm not going to go over the ins and outs of every single weapon on this list because otherwise this video would take way too long to make, but in this tier we're going to mention every weapon, and the P2020 and the Mozambique are both here once again. Of course this is without hammer points on either of those will both feature higher up in the tier list. However, without hammer points, these weapons are practically useless. Even off the drop, they are still very weak. Despite both of them receiving buffs, the Mozambique had an extra shell in its chamber, so now you have 4 rounds before having to reload, which is actually a massive buff. It is now actually very viable early game, however I still think it is the weakest of the weapons in the game, alongside the P2020, which also received a damage increase. So despite respawn buffing these weapons very slightly, they're still very weak and not viable in my opinion. And the Charge Rifle is down here for the simple fact that it is in my opinion the weakest sniper rifle in the game, for the main reason that it consumes the most amount of ammo, and although it deals high damage with around 80 damage on an actual beam fully hitting, it still eats ammo so much, and in a season that revolves around sniper meta so heavily, I think it is the weakest sniper rifle in the game, and in my opinion it rightfully belongs in the bottom tier. Moving on up now from F tier, we have D tier. That's right, we're skipping E tier. Nobody likes E tier, let's just skip right past it. We're moving to D tier now, and that is the Sentinel in my opinion. The only weapon in this tier in fact, because I think there are so many viable weapons this season, it's so hard to put weapons this low, and I think the Sentinel is the only weapon I could make a case for being this low. And I think rightfully so. As I said with the Charge Rifle, this season heavily revolves around the sniper meta, and in my opinion the Sentinel is only slightly better than the Charge Rifle. While the Sentinel does deal less damage than the Charge Rifle, it is only by a small amount, and it does not consume 2 sniper rounds for every shot fired, so that is a major bonus for the Sentinel. The Sentinel is a lot weaker than its counterparts, the Longbow and the Triple Take this season, and despite it having that really cool ability with shield cells, no one wants to use their shield cells to charge up the Sentinel when poking is such a high meta this season. You're going to be needing those cells because you're going to be getting poked a lot, so you don't really want to be wasting them on charging up your Sentinel, so it's kind of a useless ability, and that's why in my opinion it belongs down in D tier, just above the Charge Rifle. Swiftly moving on now up into the C tier, we've got some actually usable weapons here. These are all weapons I'd say you can safely run into a fight with in your back pocket, knowing that you've got a solid backup option. However, it's not a weapon you really want in the late game, and it's not really a weapon you want to be carrying around, it's just usable if you do have to fight with it. Those weapons are the RE45, the G7 double tap, the Eva 8, the Eva 8 double tap, and the L-Star. Now as I said, I can't go into detail about why each and every weapon is in the tier that it's in. However, I would say that I don't often run into battles with shotguns out, so Eva 8 is naturally going to be lower in the list in my opinion anyway, as it will be a backup weapon for me personally. However, I think the Eva 8 is the shotgun I'd least like to have in my back pocket, even if it has a double tap. Sure, it can definitely do some big damage, and I completely respect that the Eva 8 is very capable of killing anyone, no matter what armor they have. Personally, I'd just say the other shotguns it comes up against are much stronger, and therefore, the Eva 8 has to come at the bottom of the pile, in my opinion. Personally, I'd say the G7 without double tap is far superior to the G7 with double tap, so therefore it belongs down here in C tier in my opinion. However, it's probably the strongest of the C tier weapons, I have to say. And for me, the RE45 and the L-Star both just have stronger options you can pick instead of them with the same ammo type. Now moving further and further up the tier list, we are onto the B tier now for weapons in Season 6 of Apex Legends. These are weapons that are just a little bit stronger than weapons in C tier. These weapons you'd probably be very safe taking them into the end game. Maybe there are some stronger options available for you, but you're not going to be running into too much trouble if you're using these weapons in the final fights in the game, as they can definitely hold up against some of the stronger weapons in the game as well. So then in the B tier we've gone with the P2020 hammer points, the Mozambique hammer points, the Spitfire, the Alternator and the Havoc. I feel like the Havoc, the Spitfire and the Alternator are all pretty self-explanatory as why they're in B tier. However, I just want to go over why the hammer points weapons are in the B tier. A lot of people don't seem to understand how strong these weapons are, and I feel like because of the base weapon being so weak, a lot of people still haven't given them the chance, even though we are 4 seasons into the hammer points hop-up being in the game. People vastly underestimate just how strong these hop-ups make these weapons. As someone who uses shotguns primarily as secondary weapons in the game, I can tell you that when I go in with my shotgun, I expect my target to be cracked or nearly cracked for their shields, and I want my shotgun to be dealing the maximum amount of damage possible. That is exactly what the Mozambique hammer points does. It hits so hard, it will most likely 1-tap, and in the worst case scenario 2-tap your enemies, and this is just such a benefit of running the Mozambique with hammer points. It is such a strong shotgun, people really sleep on this weapon. Of course, the same goes for the P2020 with hammer points as well. This is probably my preferred hammer points weapon because you can spray it a little bit more, and especially with the lack of light weapons being used in Season 6, you're probably a little bit more likely to find those light mags around, so you can definitely spray a little bit more with this weapon as well. It's such a scary weapon to come up against when you're cracked, because you know if they land 2 or 3 of those shots, you are going down. Moving away from B tier now and up into A tier, some of the top tier weapons in the game are in this tier, and I can't wait to go over what I've put at the top of the pile for you guys. Now in the A tier we've gone with the base G7 Scout, the Wingman with Skull Piercer and the basic Wingman as well as the Longbow and the Longbow with Skull Piercer, the Flatline and the turbocharged Havoc. A lot of people will be surprised that the Wingman is down in A tier for me, and mostly that is because I'm on console, and of course the Wingman is best used on mouse and keyboard on PC. That is where that weapon is its strongest, because you can be far more accurate of course on mouse and keyboard than you can be with a controller. That being said, the Wingman is still a very strong option to use whatever platform you're playing on. It hits so very hard when you hit your shots, especially when you have the Skull Piercer hop up on as well. And being that the time to kill is now lower, so you can mount your enemies a lot quicker, the Wingman is even stronger than before. The only downside to the Wingman is of course having to be so accurate, and that can be a major flaw if you're going to whiff 1 or 2 shots in your close range fights and your opposition have a mastiff or an automatic gun. It can cost you sometimes. Both the Longbow and the Scout are also up here in A tier because they are some of the strongest long range weapons to use in Season 6. This is the season of long range poke walls, especially in Ranked, and trust me when I say these are some of the best weapons to use when having those long range poke walls. The Longbow for its better fire rate for sniper rifles, and of course the Skull Piercer hop up, making it hit for often over 100 damage per headshot. That's not something you want to be passing up on if you're having those long range poke battles to boost up your evo. And the G7 Scout, of course, because it runs light ammo instead of sniper ammo, making it easier to stack a lot more ammo to poke for a lot longer, and of course for its increased fire rate as well. Now, although the Havoc is not a very viable weapon at mid-range after the recoil nerfs, in my opinion it's one of the strongest close range weapons in the game with its hipfire, especially when you have a turbocharger on. Now, if you've got one of these in your back pocket and someone runs up on you, chances are you are absolutely going to melt them, especially if you have an extended energy mag. Do not sleep on the turbocharged Havoc. And lastly, the flatline is also in A tier because little do you know, Respawn actually buffed the flatline in this season. Now, it is just a minor tweak to the recoil, so it is more controllable, but Respawn did not mention this in the patch notes, so make sure you give the flatline a try. It hits very, very hard. It can have up to 30 rounds in a mag with a level 3 heavy mag as well, so make sure you give it a go if you haven't already. It is one of the strongest weapons in Season 6. But guys, that leaves us with the S tier, which consists of the strongest weapons in Apex Legends Season 6. Now, you may notice that there are a lot of weapons in this tier, and that is because the meta is quite spread out at the moment. Although we have this long range meta, there are a lot of options you can run as a secondary that are very, very strong at the moment. So we have a lot of choice up in this S tier, but make no mistake, all of these weapons are not to be messed with and are all very, very strong. So up in the S tier, we have the Triple Take, the Prowler Select Fire, the Mastiff, the R301, the Hemlock, and of course, the Volt SMG. It's fair to say all of these weapons are very self-explanatory for why they are up in S tier, so I definitely do not need to cover each and every one of these weapons. The one weapon I feel I may need to cover for some players is the Triple Take and why it is so high this season compared to other seasons. This season, Respawn decided to integrate the Precision Choke hop-up into the Triple Take and remove it off the ground, so immediately the Triple Take received a huge buff in the fact that it has the choke at all times now, so you can hit for those 75 damage poke shots from long range all the time now. You don't need to find the hop up anymore, which is a massive buff in itself. Also, Respawn decided that along with this, they wanted to increase the fire rate of the Triple Take so you can fire off those high damage shots a lot faster, making the Triple Take even stronger. So if you hit for one of those 75 or 110 headshots, then you can poke the second and third shots in very quickly afterwards, so the enemy does not have a chance to escape, heal, or get round into cover. I would say the buff of the Triple Take is the exact reason why we have this long range poking meta in Season 6. It is because this gun is so strong, people are not dropping it, people are picking it up every time they see it, and they are using it to bump up those evos, which of course is now part of the game now for some reason. So that is exactly why we have the poking meta. This gun is the reason for it. You can thank Respawn because this gun is just absolutely insane. Briefly going over the other weapons, of course the Prowler has only gotten stronger this season somehow. I don't know how, because it was the strongest weapon in Season 5, and for some reason they decided to buff it by reducing the recoil for the burst mode, which actually has a higher damage per second output than the fully auto version, so they buffed the already stronger version of the Prowler to make it even stronger, so great. And with the lower time to kill, it's even stronger, so great. We also have the Volt SMG, which everyone knows is absolutely insane because it has basically no recoil and a very high DPS, so that weapon is nuts as well. I'm sure you've all been using that already. The Mastiff has a very high potential damage per second if you hit the shots. Of course, it can hit for hundreds if you hit those fat shots, or it can also hit for 13s. It's really a luck of the draw when using the Mastiff. Of course, the R301 is still up in S tier. It always has been, it always will be. Such a valid option to use for an assault rifle. Probably my favourite assault rifle in the game, and unless they decide to nerf it for some reason, because I don't think it needs one, I think it's in a good place right now, then it always will remain in S tier. And of course, last but not least, the Hemlock. They buffed it this season so that it has a higher fire rate as well, and a much easier to control recoil for the burst mode, and that's just made this thing a laser. This thing is actually a mid-range laser now, so if you haven't given the Hemlock a chance, make sure you do, because this thing will not let you down. But guys, there you have it. There is my Season 6 weapons tier list. Wait. Yeah, I forgot the last tier. Devotion tier. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. Make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content if you have. Until next time guys, it's been your boy Ashton and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy and goodbye.